Beautiful, lovely face back again. And we have another new member with us. Good to have you along. And ma'am, would you do roll call for us? Sure. Okay.
Commissioner Pritchett.
Here.
Andrea Young. Here. Mayor Medina.
Present.
Donnie Donatus.
Here.
Christy Galzrana.
Here.
Tom Hermanson.
Here.
Matthew Boucher. I probably butchered your name.
Here.
Boucher. Wayne Sword. Keith Winston.
Is he online?
He is not yet.
Okay, we have a quorum, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. And Mr. Cranis would like to make sure that you guys are aware of conflict of interest. Hey, Mr. Sword, you're here, so if you would.
Yes, ma'am. So, put my speaker on. So you have in front of you the potential conflict disclosure form. This is something that needs to be updated every year. So even if you've done it in the past, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and filling that out and leaving it with Candace in the back, that would be awesome. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, and right now I need a motion to approve the minutes for November 16.
So move.
Motion by Mayor Medina, second by Ms. Andrea. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now it is time to select a vice chair. And would anybody like to make a nomination for vice chair?
I'll nominate Tom Hermanson.
Okay, I have Tom Hermanson. Do I have another nomination or a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Andrea Young. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Welcome back again, Mr. Hermanson. Okay, and now I have handed out the committee chair appointments, so if you guys would look those over. I try to contact send it out early in case you had any kind of conflicts. I think Mr. Cranis set that out. Did you?
I did. I'm sorry, ma'am. I did not. But I will. I'll send it out
Okay.
after this meeting.
Okay, so those are the ones that are going to chair, and then Mr. Cranis, I think I'll explain it to you later with
Yes,
how to
ma'am.
do those items. All right, easy peasy, and I'm going to hand this back to you again, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Looking at just in your packet on page 13, I just wanted to point out we got our year-end room night demand numbers. Next to tourist development tax, I look at room night demand as one of those really significant indicators of business that we're driving, because this is the number of hotel rooms that have been rented. So out of all the 10,500 or so rooms in the county, you multiply that times 365, that's your total inventory. In 2019, we rented 2.3 million. And then we saw, of course, that decline in the COVID year. It went down about 600,000 to 1.7 million. And then in 2021, it came right back to 2.3 million. Well, last year, the numbers finally came in, and we were at 2.684 million, so nearly 2.7 million, and almost another 400,000 room nights that we rented. We were almost at 16% growth over the prior year. And then if you look on that page down at the bottom, it kind of lays out the competitive set. If you look at every other beach destination that we consider in our competitive set, we were way above them. So doing very, very well in comparison. Daytona particularly, they were actually in the negative, and I think my opinion is a lot of that is that we're stealing some share from that market in a significant way. The other report, speaking of TDT, I wanted to share is on page 32. So we have 2 months of the year in so far, October, November. Both of those months were record months for those months, so record October, and then we had a record November. Both October was nearly 1.79 million, and November at 1.74. December is tracking to also be a record month for that month. I'm guessing somewhere between between 1.7 and 1.8 million. So we'll see where the numbers finally come in a couple of weeks, but looking very good there. January, just very far advanced numbers. May not be quite at the 2022 level, but I think it'll still be a strong January. So we'll see how it goes. So far so good, and we'll just keep watching it month to month. Budget, nothing really special to report. We had our fall campaign, so a lot of those invoices were just coming in December. So we're tracking well on the budget items, so nothing really special to report. We will, when we talk about beach, I'm sorry, ma'am, I forgot to mention, we do have Mike McGarry here to do a beach report when we get to that point, but we'll talk a little bit about the beach costs, and there is going to be some significant pressure on that budget this year because of everything that we're trying to do to recover from Ian and Nicole. That's it on that. And then the last but not least, committee appointments. If you look on page 35 and 36, there's actually a schedule of all of the committee dates for the year. Each member gets to select members for each of the committees. If you're a chair, you select for the other 4 committees, so other than the chair that the committee you've been assigned to. If you're not a chair, then you select 5 people, so 1 person for each committee. And it would be helpful, I know they're not due till our next meeting in February, but it would be very, very helpful if you could get to Candace and I who you're thinking about, just so we can kind of begin that compilation and vetting process. So it just helps us if we can get it a little bit in advance. But they're not due until you come at the next meeting. As far as the committee dates themselves, March we'll meet, all the committees will meet, and then we'll begin looking at grant guidelines. So 4 out of those 5 committees have different grant programs. The only one that doesn't have a grant program is marketing, but they have obviously a lot of other work to do when it comes to our marketing plan. So that'll be what they work on. But the other committees will all start working on the guidelines. Then those will go to the board come here, and then they go to the board for approval, and then we start our grant cycles usually right around the summertime. So a lot of work to do for these committees, and try to select the best people you can, people who are willing to do a little bit of work, because it does involve some time not only at the committee, but then also they review all of these grants, so they need to really take some time to do that. And that is my report, Madam Chair.
All right. Very quickly, for the people that are first time putting people on boards, if you get a hold of Mr. Cranis, he's real good with helping you figure out how to do that and get applicants. And real quick, while people are out there, if you want to speak today, if you fill out a public comment card so we'd be ready at that time, that would be great too. And we do not have many committee reports, but Ms. Charity, we do have a report from you, ma'am. All right.
Thank you, everybody. I just have a couple of updates. It's been a few months since we've met, so I wanted to give a few, since we've met here. We have not had a committee meeting yet, but just so everybody knows what happened over the fall. I'm going to start with, in November when we met, we talked through all of the large-scale paid campaigns that we had going on, walked through a lot of the creative. One of the things I mentioned is that we last year started running a food-based campaign in the fall, and so it was asked if I would provide some updates from this year's food campaign. So I've got a few slides to show you, and I want to talk about Fall is for Foodies. It's been really successful that I think we're probably going to work on it all throughout the year, maybe not just in the fall. Again, if you need restaurant recommendations, I'm your gal. So again, the program was to really drive those fall overnight visits from our drive market within a few hours from here. But in addition to that, one of the things that helps us tell that story is creating website content and social media content that people can engage with, share, and talk about. So For us, we were looking to highlight the Space Coast as a destination that is filled with unique dining experiences, and that's from the very tippy top of the county all the way to the bottom. The restaurants are spread out, and the stories about the restaurants are spread out. So we looked at those really active adults who could travel on the weekends, primarily in those Florida markets that had an interest in not just travel and beaches, but also obviously in food. So some of the things that we did to support the event this year, we did create an entire new Space Coast food guide set of landing pages. It's a real comprehensive set of if you're looking for a brunch location or seafood locations. And I've got a couple screenshots I'll show you for that. We did both paid and organic social media ads. Our awareness surveys continue to show that social media is one of the top ways that people both find out about us but also engage with us. There are a lot of fall food promotions that happen along the Space Coast, and so we took the opportunity to incorporate those and really help spread the event message for those food festivals. And then we hosted social media content creators from major Florida markets who already have audiences built around really great food pictures. And we had 4 of those in market. So we looked at website traffic, overall social media reach. On our website, if you haven't been there in a while, every restaurant who would like to can have a business listing, and that is something that a visitor on the website can review, or a local, frankly. So we looked at how many people were looking at those reviews before we ran the campaign and then during the campaign. And then, of course, TDT. While we did have our large fall advertising budget, running for our major markets, this was a nice complement to try to drive some of those local overnight stays. So these are just a couple of snippets of the, I don't know why the top's not minimizing, but of the website. So again, you've got all those topics, Space Coast top barbecue joints, family-friendly restaurants in Cocoa Beach. Our ice cream tour is very popular. So it's actually, if we click into that, you can see a Google map of all of the different frozen treats and ice cream listings that we've curated. So you can just open it up on your phone, see where you are, and zoom in on what might be closest to you. We highlighted the events, like I mentioned, and then again, we've taken a lot of time to really curate a lot of excellent food photography and combine them for things like date nights, brunch, things you'll only find here on the Space Coast. And then we push this out all fall long through our channels. So we ran some paid advertising. Nothing gets a conversation started more than a picture of beautiful food, other than launches, of course. So these were a few examples of ads that we pushed out. Those drove straight to those pages that I just mentioned. We developed great engagement, great reach. We had a set of about 12 that we ran throughout the fall featuring those different topics. I mentioned the content creators. So one of the things that we looked for when we hosted the content creators was hotels that had unique dining options that they could stay at, unique restaurants or bakeries, a lot of bakeries, coffee shops that we could feature, and then really special dishes. And that's how we created their itinerary. So here you can see an example of someone who stayed at the Hilton Garden Inn, Cocoa Beach. They went to the Junk Food Bakery in Cocoa Beach. If you haven't been, she makes excellent desserts. And then they did a night at Pompano Grill. So we told these stories of where to stay and play, some unique places to eat and some dishes to try. And then those were static posts through social, but many of them also created videos. So this was one down in Melbourne featuring Intercoastal and the bearded chef down there. So again, really showing their viewers. This is the type of vibe, the feel, the outdoors of experiencing those craft beers. The behind the scenes, a lot of the restaurant partners let these folks come in, go behind the scenes, ask them questions, take videos of things maybe you wouldn't see normally of the process. This one was up in Titusville. She was at Sunrise Bakery, and they let her go behind to see how some of the bread was made, which I thought was really neat. And again, you can see there on the right all of the engagement that these types of posts create. So we hosted these folks all fall long, and while they're no longer here, right, these videos and posts stay up on their social, but they also created images and videos for us to be able to use in the future. So definitely a multi-asset campaign that we created. So here's how we track results. 18,000 new users to those couple of landing pages. The views of those restaurant listings I mentioned, up 39% over the summer. So summer obviously is our most popular time on the website. So to see this huge traffic increase suggested people are at least going to learn more online about these restaurants. More than 750,000 people reached with 2.1 million impressions served. Those 4 social media foodies are from Boca, Orlando, Miami, and General South Florida. Combined, they had a follower reach of about 212,000, but then, like I said, as they grow, our content stays, plus we added those new assets to our library. And then we also worked with Visit Florida, who is doing a food campaign as well. They're doing something called Florida's Table, which is coming in and interviewing unique chefs and restaurants. We featured Cedars Cafe in Melbourne. She is a zero-waste scratch kitchen, so it's really interesting to hear her talk about, you know, she doesn't throw things away. It ends up in your food on your plate, and it's very visually stunning. So that's the food program. And like I said, it was so successful, we look to do it again in the spring, something similar. So Surfing Santas this year, changing gears, it was very cold for those of you who were here around Christmas. And we were a little worried what the turnout was going to be like, both from surfers and visitors, and also from the media. But it was a record-breaking year for us. So 334 total placements that featured Surfing Santas. That's a 1.8 billion B with a reach, and 3.1 million in total publicity value. So that publicity value number is a approximation if I were to try to buy that kind of reach, how much I would have had to spend to buy it, and instead we earned it in media. Here were 2 big hits. George was featured on the Kelly Clarkson show one day, which was amazing. It was our first daytime major show that he did a live interview on. And then Fox Weather did a live from him that morning at the beach. Everybody couldn't stop talking about the cold temperatures, so it actually turned out, you know, it was a good news angle. So it was a great day. It was a cold day, but it was a great day. So we have over in the UK and Germany, our representative, Roxana Timmis, who we've introduced you to, at least, you know, through the slides. She's had a very busy couple of months, so I just wanted to give a quick brief update on that. She has been working to update all of our memberships and directory listings and destination information with all of the Visit USA entities in the UK, Germany, Switzerland, Ireland, and the Netherlands. So what that means is travel agents and visitors can now find us on those websites, and she does a lot of the translation work for us as well. She's done more than 50 sales calls so far. Implemented a couple of co-op programs already. Visit Florida has some great international co-ops that we've been able to work through them with. Conducting webinars and trainings. So far, she's trained 170 agents. That was year-to-date 2022. And then she's also started to represent us in in-person events. So this one was from Zurich. Again, this was something Visit Florida put on, and so we were able to present in person there to 150 travel agents. So she's been very busy over there, and we're looking forward to seeing those results as the TUI flights start back up again in the spring.
And I just wanted to share a little bit about TUI, too. We just had a call with them yesterday. They generated 120,000 passengers directly to Melbourne last year from the UK, so from 7 different cities in the UK. So that's incredible to get that direct business. Our goal is to really convert those people to Space Coast fans and try to get them to stay here longer and do more. So that was the whole conversation with TUI, was how do we train their agents, train their people, so that when their customers are calling in and talking about, you know, I want to come to Central Florida, they're thinking not just Disney and Universal, which of course we know they want to do, but staying here for several nights. And so our whole conversation was sort of strategizing around that for this next year. And we have a $300,000 advertising budget that we put in the marketing plan to work with them this year on to try to drive that and generate that. So they're very excited about it. They love the Space Coast. They were complimentary in terms of like our airport, the transportation, the hotels, everything that we have to offer. They're very excited about for their passengers to experience. So, I don't know if the 120 will grow. I think the capacity will go up to 150,000 this year, so hopefully we'll max that out. But it's also about trying to get those people to stay here and do more.
And then that takes us to where we are currently. So the spring campaign has started. It is a $1.6 million budget. It started on January the 16th. We are seeing again that travelers are starting to look a little bit further out as they make their plans. So we wanted to be sure we were there after the holidays when they were ready to book their vacations. Our markets haven't changed since we talked. Obviously, our primary Florida markets, Atlanta and Charlotte, with those direct flights, but also drive. And then our major markets, Boston, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago. We have been working with Brand USA and Visit Florida for UK and Canada-based advertising. That is also rolling out in those markets. So if they're ready to get out of the cold, we have a message suggesting a very nice warm place for them to come. We did utilize a lot of that fall creative that we looked at. We analyzed how things are performing, updated that for spring vacation messaging, and then at the same time, we're continuing to develop the countdown creative concept that we presented last fall. And once those are ready, obviously we'll show that to you guys, and they will start to be integrated into the current campaign that is running. So those messages include the municipalities on the Space Coast, the pre and post cruise messaging, and then that Orlando's closest beach messaging. So just as a reminder, these are some of what those creatives look like. We have the split screens that are static. We have the ones that are moving. We have the single images. And just as a reminder for those who saw the November presentation, there are dozens of each kind of these advertising. So for, today I just brought you a few. But and then we have a new interactive ad running. So some of you guys saw the first version of this. This one now has sound, which I wasn't able to record yesterday, so that was my bad. But if you're on your phone and you meet our demographic, you get this ad surfed to you. You'll actually hear the waves and then the rocket as it's moving up into the sky. And then you can start engaging with that. And that ad unit continues to perform exceptionally well. And we just love that we're able to talk so much about the Space Coast, within that small space on your screen. This is an example of one of the print ads that we're running over in the UK in correlation with our Brand USA campaign. And then, as a little teaser, one of the things that we talked about and the feedback I heard as it relates to the countdown concept was how neat would it be if we could integrate some of the things that visitors count down to, things like sea turtle season, bioluminescence season. So this is one of the concepts that we're going to work on refining that goes into that. And again, just really eye-catching. That would stop the scroll. It is just a draft, but I wanted to just show you guys some of the directions that we're headed based on the feedback that we heard. And then those will click over to the landing page that would say like, hey, we're counting down to turtle season on the Space Coast. Here's the things you can do. Here's the places you can stay. So a really neat evolution of that concept. So that's my report. The next marketing committee meeting is March 8th. It will be at the offices in Cocoa Beach. And unless anybody has any questions, that's all I got.
Good. Thank you for that. You gave us a great report last time. So I believe we don't have other committee reports, except you do want a report from our beach guy, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, all. Good to see you. For the new folks in the room, I'm Mike McGarry. I manage beach projects for Brevard County on behalf of the Tourist Development Council and the Board of County Commissioners who generate the funding for the program. So after Hurricanes Ian and Nicole, I've been busy. Ian did some moderate damage to our beaches. At the time, it wasn't the worst, but it was significant. And then a month or so later, Nicole came in and really did much more severe damage due to the tide cycle she showed up at and the time spent offshore. So after Hurricane Ian, our two different project types, we have the Army Corps projects that we are the local sponsor in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers, and that includes the South Reach project in Indian Atlantic and the Mid Reach in the Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor area, as well as the North Reach up in Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral. We evaluated damage after the storms and put in a formal request to the Army Corps, and they begin their process to determine if we're potentially eligible for their emergency storm response funding process. They call it, it's the Flood Control and Coastal Emergency Program. So that happened after Ian, and our South Beaches project from Spessor Holland Park South. The Army Corps does not build our beach down there. That's been built by the county with funding assistance from the state and occasionally funding assistance from FEMA after declared emergencies. So we also evaluated damage in the South Beaches. After Ian, the South Beaches damage, I estimated at about $8.5 million, and with support of the Board of County Commissioners, we put out a project out to bid to repair that damage. Nicole came in and did almost 3 times the damage as Ian. So the initial damage estimate that I provided for Nicole was about $22 million. And we believe that South Beaches project, because it's a declared emergency and it's a engineered beach project that the county has maintained over the years, that it should be eligible for FEMA assistance, which should, in the end, mean the county pays 12.5% of the cost, and the emergency FEMA process will pick up the other 87.5%. So the trouble with FEMA projects is you have to pay for them now and go through the process to get reimbursed, if all goes well, in a couple of years. I would say two to 3 years. Our office has been successful in getting reimbursed in the 2 to 3 year time frame, but we had to come up with the money for that. The two storms combined, initially, it was a little over $30 million was based on my hasty post-storm estimate. Now that we're getting quotes in, it looks like we're going to be about $4 million. The cost will be $4 million less than my initial estimate. So that's good news. Well, you might wonder, why didn't I hit it exactly on the head? I figured it's better I was 10% high than 10% low. So the good news now, I think the total cost of both the projects and all the associated engineering and environmental monitoring will be about $26.5 million, as opposed to the about $30.5 million was my initial estimate. So with Peter's help, the Board of County Commissioners approved funding this work, but it will leave the beach funds within the TDC extremely short over the next year or two until the reimbursement has come back. The Board of County Commissioners did provide authority to utilize some other funds if and as needed to get us over the dry spell, and I'll let Peter can fill in the blanks on that. But in the end, it's a lot of money, and for those, if you're new, you'd think, how can you spend that much money on beaches? But when I just have to remind myself and others, the economic impact of beach-related tourism to Brevard, it's measured in billions, not millions. You know, it's over $1 billion a year is the best estimates I've heard. So, well, and Tom's given me a thumbs up, higher. So the point is, it's an investment in our tourist industry as well as protecting our parks and tax base. So even though they're expensive, it comes back to support our community. I will add, if those of you who saw Daytona Beach Shores made a lot of national news after Nicole. It's the footage you saw with seawalls falling over, houses falling in the drink in Volusia County, and that's a reflection. They have never had a proactive beach project. So I actually had a county commissioner or their equivalent, I'm not sure if they call them commissioners in Volusia, but a county leader up there called me a couple weeks after and said, is it true that Cocoa Beach is just fine? How are we in such bad shape? And I just explained to him proactive beach maintenance, and he's become a regular friend. He calls me every couple of weeks to ask for guidance, but they just didn't get ahead of the curve. They had never built an engineered beach. They had a narrow beach with ancient seawalls behind it, and this one, it caused their walls to collapse, and now they're trying to catch up. So it really is a reflection on the investment by the tourism industry, and the Board of County Commissioners let us get through this storm. It's going to cost us money to repair our beaches, but we're in pretty good shape. And in the meantime, on our federal projects with the Army Corps of Engineers, I'm working vigorously with our representatives in Washington and our lobbyists to try to get emergency Army Corps funding so that all the additive costs to re-nourish the mid-reach and the south reach in the next couple of years, any additive cost as a result of the storm, I can't promise it, but I'm relatively confident that cost will get federal money, so it will not be an added impact to the tourism beach budget.
Thanks, Mike. I was just going to add just what it does to our budget. For those of you that were here last year and approved the almost $10 million in reserves for that beach budget, all of that will be utilized this year, so that'll go to zero. In fact, we just did a budget change request for just under $10 million to shift that money into operational funds so we can access it as soon as Mike and his contractors need it. And then we had about another $7.5 million in the operational budget that'll also get wiped out. The question will be timing. So the project isn't all going to get probably done before May 1st, which is turtle season, and that's when they have to stop the engineering and putting sand on the beach. So some of that money may fall into the next fiscal, which will actually help us a little bit. But I haven't started doing budgeting for next year yet, but it's going to be a little touch and go there for, as Mike said, a year or two until we really either get some reimbursement back from FEMA or see where we may have some savings, or as Mike mentioned in the other projects, maybe get some additional funding from the other projects. But we'll have to really see where we go. But certainly for the next year, we're going to be in a very precarious situation. And if here we are in 23 and hurricane season's coming up in June, it just makes me very nervous because if something else happens in the coming season, we're not flush with money and certainly don't have the capability of responding very well. The one thing that the board did approve was some use of some excess ARPA funds. I don't remember the exact amount, Mike. It was either 6 or 8 million that they authorized in ARPA that we still had available in those funds that could also be utilized. So that's a little bit of help, but But you can see the size of these projects when we really get a hit. It's very expensive.
It was
So,
up to 8.4 million of
8.4.
ARPA.
Thank you, thanks.
Did the county address for this budget cycle the $1 million for the Indian River Lagoon that comes out of the beach fund?
They did not, that was not brought up, so as of right now, that, the IRL Lagoon grant money is still in place for that purpose. So, you know, that, obviously, that is $1 million that's potentially available to reallocate, but that would have to go to the board for, you know, their thoughts on it.
I think that new lagoon plan's coming to us shortly, too. And I didn't hear of that change coming into it, so.
Yeah, we've, for the new members, I'll rehash some history. Several years back, the Board of County Commissioners decided to, on an annual basis, divert $1 million from the beach fund, which has built up these reserves over time in case of storms like we just experienced, for projects that the TDC then allocates to various applicants. I think my opinion's known on it, but with respect to needing those beach renourishment funds now, since there's other large sources of funding for the Indian River Lagoon, including the $50 million a year in sales tax and potentially the $100 million a year recurring funding that the governor has put in as a high priority in this year's budget cycle, I wonder whether or not this board might want to discuss and potentially recommend to the Board of County Commissioners to, while the budget is completely depleted, forego utilization of beach renourishment funds for Indian River Lagoon projects.
I wouldn't be objecting to that myself right now because we're having to take a lot of our other funds and move them over. So I think that might be a responsible recommendation. Have you, sir, by any chance talked with Virginia or anybody on the Lagoon Board to see if we could start getting them moving in this direction as well? Because it always helps when we have a board that's heard it first as well.
First day back, so if
Yeah.
that was a question to me, no. I know Virginia does tremendous work with respect to allocating the funds in the Sorrel Fund, so she's obviously the most knowledgeable person on how those funds are allocated. And of course, when the TDC and the Board of County Commissioners has made the $1 million a year available, of course, it's incumbent upon her to present projects that have then been funded. I would suspect that because of the extreme condition that the beach fund finds itself in, that she and staff would understand that those funds are better directed towards beach renourishment since the fund is depleted.
Okay, why don't, if you're good, let me give her a call tomorrow and see if she already encumbered anything into the future to see what that looks like. And if we could either bring it up here as a board or however you want to do it, but I don't object to that myself. I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Virginia would be really good to talk to because she just mentioned from last year, there was some extra ARPA funds from the state. And she was mentioning today, actually, in our meeting this morning with the other directors, that there were several $1 million that they're looking to utilize. So if there's a possibility of maybe taking a portion of that and using it for these smaller grants, and then taking our grant money and using it for beach renourishment, I think that would help. It's only $1 million. I say only $1 million. I never thought I'd be talking like that, but I mean, when you're talking about a $30 million project, every little bit would help. So that would be interesting to hear her thoughts.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Cranis, I do have one question. If we do this, do we have any other beach areas that are going to hit a crisis while we're focusing all this money on the South Beach area? So is there something we're going to
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, because of our partnership with the feds, the Mid-Reach and the South Reach are, I think, going to be in relatively good stead. And, the South beaches are the ones that really fall on us, I won't say fully because we still get some state help with them. And then, of course, FEMA has helped in the past when we've had storm events. But yeah, we don't, the North Reach, we are good because the feds pay for all of that and they manage those projects, and we don't have to do anything from basically north of the Space Force base all the way up to the port is already covered by a previous lawsuit that the feds lost, and then and now they have, what is it, a 25-year or something in that range.
Yeah, they have about 35 years left
35,
of
right.
obligation. And the county, the TDC and County Commission spends some money on permitting and monitoring of that North Reach project, but the federal government does pay the whole bulk of the construction costs, measured in, many millions.
Yeah. So I think that's our biggest exposure, is really the South Beaches.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if I could build on that, though, I believe Peter's right, we're okay now, but whatever we can do to start rebuilding our reserve, because even though we're talking about hurricane response projects a year from now, 3 or 4 years after that, we're going to need another pot of just to pay our normal maintenance. So whatever can be done to start building our reserves back would be beneficial to the cause.
I'll take the chance to repeat this. Historically, Mike and his team have done a tremendous job. 25% of our bed tax goes towards the beach fund, and on a historic basis, we received a bit north of a 9-to-1 match from the state and the federal government. So beyond ROI on marketing and placed media with the surfing Santas, which is amazing, it's the highest return on investment for utilization of TDC funds. The most important thing is, as Gary or Mike just pointed out, if we don't have the funds to do the engineering and the initial construction and maintenance, then the state funds and the federal funds disappear. And so you have to have the upfront money in order to get the reimbursements.
Yeah, I think too, once we start this project, we're required to keep the beaches nourished too. So we're going to have to get busy trying to figure out how to get some funds or reinvent the wheel here down the road. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's all the committee reports we have right now. I don't have any public comment cards. So I'm going to go ahead and go to board reports. Mayor Medina.
So the first thing I'd like to say is I want to echo what Tom mentioned. Mike McGarry's been with the county handling our beach renourishment for decades that I could remember. And we're truly blessed to have all his efforts and his expertise, but moreover, that historical knowledge that comes with it. So thank you, Mike. I really appreciate everything you do for our community. Then I'd like to turn and tell you that last year, the funding I received for the Mayor's Ball was used for an architectural rendering in building a monument worthy of the sacrifice of our law enforcement officials at Sacrifice Park in Palm Bay. And even though it is in Palm Bay, each and every first responders, just not law enforcement, each and every first responders will be able to be listed on that monument in line of duty deaths. So part of this year's Mayor's Ball, which is March 18th, 2023, please mark your calendars at the Melbourne Hilton Rialto. I really would love if you all would join me and everyone in the community to lock arms with me and assist me in building that monument that would be worthy of the sacrifice. We had 2 law enforcement officials that were killed in the line of duty in the city of Palm Bay. Before I even was able to get here, but I do remember Palm Bay made the national headlines, and I was in the Marine Corps at the time, where we lost officers Krogan and Johnson, April 23rd, 1987. So this is a tribute to not only their families, but other law enforcement officials that have lost their lives in the act of serving each and every one of us. So I truly believe that the blood that was shed on that day is the foundation not only of our city, but also our county. And I stress, lock arms with me in building that monument. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sword? Any board reports, sir?
I don't have anything to report today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boucher, welcome aboard. Do you have any comments, reports?
No comments or reports, just for those of you I have not met yet, my name is Matt Boucher. I live in Melbourne, been a lifelong Brevard County resident. Looking forward to serving, and hopefully I can offer some good insight. Thank you for having me.
It's always fun to get fresh ideas. Welcome. Ms. Galzerno. Did I say that right?
Galzerano.
Galzerano. Thank you.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Donatus.
Yeah, just the one thing, kind of just, and this is more of what's coming the next few weeks, and again, just kind of seeing if there's anything, and working with you guys or anything we can help doing at USSSA. We have, starting tomorrow, around 500 teams coming in the next month, starting Thursday through Sunday, the following week, from 37 different states. So kind of some of these events come in, just utilizing, again, relationships within, the community. And if there's anything we can do proactively to help, anybody here and get out in front, whatever that may look like, just know very open to doing so. And again, trying to connect a lot of dots and just make sure that, at our facility, driving people, that we continue to get those people to want to come back. And obviously the sport is a big piece of that, but the repeat customers year after year that are going to come here are going to come due to the ancillary stuff outside of the sports themselves, the experience. So anything that we can do, again, collaboratively, or I can do to help, and vice versa, just kind of want to take the chance to know in the next month there's going to be a lot of traffic coming in and out. And again, if there's anything can be done from that standpoint, definitely here, open and very flexible to any ideas, or again, thinking outside the box. So outside of that, I'm excited to be here.
We kind of enjoy that mess. It's exciting. 500 teams?
500 teams from 37 states.
How many people does that make? Totally a lot, right? Because they're families, parents. And,
Yeah, I mean, 10,000 plus.
yeah. My granddaughters got to play in the stadium already, too, and it was a lot of fun. So, yeah,
Yeah.
excited about those opportunities.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Hermanson.
2023 is off to a good start.
Yeah,
Hoping that it holds up for the rest of the year, that looming recession doesn't come to transpire, so we're cautiously optimistic that 23 will be good. We'll see.
in case it does, save your cash.
Yes.
Ms. Young.
No report.
Okay, and I have no report. I'm going to call this meeting adjourned, and I'll see you guys in about a month.
Thank you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.